You share it on the tweeters?
Yes, we can. Yes. Where's the public link? Public.
I got it.
You got it.
I'll send it to you.
You tweet and I will retweet. Oh, this one.
Yeah.
Coffee.
Okay.
6 p.m. That's the same link you sent me from before, which is not the public link.
Okay. Yep, you're right. There you go.
There we go. Copy. Live for episode 77 of the @Laravel News podcast.
It has been tweeted.
Tweet. All right, now let's try this again.
Ooh, iced coffee.
It's definitely closed.
Okay, here we go. Here we go. Are you ready for this? Should we start recording?
Yeah. I don't even know what we're going to talk about, so that's cool.
We're on episode 77. That's all that matters.
Do it. All right.
All right.
I'm ready
to start recording. All right. 1, 2, 3, record. Checkity check. There we go. I will have you know, I'm eating a bag of Toll House semi-sweet morsels. These little chocolate chips.
Morsels.
I was craving some chocolate, and it is 11 o'clock, so we didn't have any chocolate, so I figured I'd grab these. They'll do. They will do.
All right.
And then I was eating that in a pretzel stick, and that was really dang good. It's amazing.
Pretzel stick? Pretzels and chocolate, they just go together.
They do. They do indeed.
They go together like lamb and tuna fish.
Ugh, that's disgusting. Is that a thing?
You've never heard that saying?
Never have heard that.
Where was it from? Little Nicky, some Adam Sandler movie. And it was Rob Schneider. They go together like a lamb and a tuna fish.
Yuck. That sounds good. All right, here we go.
Oricon
intro,
US
right? Blah blah blah. Intro
is coming. That's the last thing we spoke about.
So are we way? So like I'm looking just at like account/archive.
Yeah, we're way behind there. We're in trouble. We're going to find some things to talk about.
Hold on a second here. Hold on.
Older posts.
Oh gosh, we are really back there, aren't we? We said Laravel. What was it? Laravel 5.
Oh, the last. Professionalism.
What was the last thing we covered?
Laracon US. The last Laravel release we talked about was 5.7.17.
Wow, 16? Seriously, that much stuff? My gosh.
We talked about Forg. We talked about linting view code. We talked about Laravel Dusk. 5.7.17. All right, newer posts. Here we go.
Send me the link. Send me the link you have, because I don't even know where you're talking about here.
Okay. Here. Yeah.
Okay, so we're starting on web development on an iPad. Is that one we're starting on?
Laravel Mix version 4.
Why am I not seeing this?
Go down.
Oh, Laravel Mix. Okay, I got it. Okay,
yeah, so that's the
wow. First we're starting all the way back there. Okay.
I think we touched on that, but it was not out at the time. There was no article about that.
All right, we're gonna have to bust through this stuff, dude.
Bust it.
All right, are we ready?
Yeah, as ready as we're gonna be.
All right, let me finish this chocolate chip.
Okay.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Laravel News Podcast. This is episode 77. We are a little bit behind. The last thing that we covered, I think, was like December 17th. Is that right?
It's a while back. Yeah, we stopped.
It's a while back.
We stopped before the holiday period.
Okay. So, I mean, is there any point to like trying to organize? Let's just jump in and just try and get through as much as we can, as quick as we can.
Let's jump in. Let's do it.
And I'll say the reason why is because we both have children who have already woken up crying while we've been trying to record this.
Yeah.
So we're gonna go for it. All right, Michael, lead us off with Laravel Mix 4.
Yeah. So we did touch on this, that it was out in our last episode, but there is now an article on Laravel News which goes into a bit more detail on all the things that have changed, that have been added. So we've got a few high level things to go through. Most importantly, we've got faster compilation and faster npm installs, which is a byproduct of having upgraded to using Webpack 14. We've upgraded to using ViewLoader 15. We've upgraded to Babel 7. We do automatic vendor extraction if you call mix.extract all of your vendor dependencies, which is
Ooh,
basically
that's
any
nice.
package that's in known modules that you pull in will automatically be extracted into a separate
Ooh,
vendor thing. So
JS
you
file.
can, yeah, vendor.js, vendor.css, you can cache those things for much longer because
Right,
typically they
right.
won't change very often. So it's that way you're only pushing down your application's new assets every time they update, which are obviously much more likely to change than, you know, updating a version of Vue or updating a version of some other third-party dependency that you're using. So that is really nice. We can now pass options to CSS minification via CSS Nano. Post CSS plugins can be passed to mix.sass, less, and stylus on a per call basis, which means you can provide unique post CSS plugins for each mix.sass call if you've got different Sass files, for example. So that's
Interesting.
really handy.
Yeah.
But the JS optimization and minification has been swapped from using Uglify JS to Tersa. And from Node Sass, we've switched to Dart Sass, which we spoke a little bit about on the previous
Yeah,
episode.
right. Yep. Node Sass has been a huge problem for me, like having to recompile Node Sass,
Yeah.
like force recompile, whatever.
Yeah.
Rebuild,
Yeah.
whatever it is.
So this comes with a small increased compile time cost, but it means that at the end of the day, you've got faster and more reliable npm installs, which is always a nice thing.
Yes.
And the Babel config merging strategy has been improved, so you can now override or tweak any of the default Babel plugins and presets provided throughout Mix by creating a Babel RC file in your project root.
Ooh. Yeah, I don't usually mess with most of that. Babel, I just like just do your thing, Babel.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So as we said, we're using Dart Sass now. Support is largely identical, and as I said, you may notice some compile warnings. Oh, sorry, we hadn't mentioned that, but you might notice some compile time warnings when upgrading. You can manually change back by installing the Node Sass package, and there's a implementation. You can just specify that you want to use Node Sass instead of Dart Sass.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely check out the PR notes that Jeffrey included in the Laravel repo when updating Mix to version 4 to understand if the need for a few of the extra npm dependencies, handling .default on your Vue components, for example. Hard to explain verbally because I don't know specifically what it is. It's got something to do with the new loader syntax that's being used. So definitely check that out. The links will be in the show notes, of course.
Very good. Thanks, Jeffrey, for all your work on that. There are so many of us who benefit so much from all the hard work that he has put in because literally most of that stuff is just dark magic to me. I have no idea
Yeah,
what
absolutely.
most of it is. I just kind of use the default mix file and just go, and it just works. It's amazing. I get browser sync, I get hot reloading, I get minification, I get cache busting, all of that stuff for free. Thank you, Mr. Jeffrey Way. You're amazing.
Absolutely.
All right, we've got Laravel 5.7.18 released 3 things here. So there is now a validation rule introduced, which is called starts with. And it does exactly what you would think, which it checks to see if a string starts with something. There's also a new facade resolved method. So if you have a facade, like say auth, or it could be a custom defined facade that you have, you can put a method on there called resolved, which will take a callback that can be run after service resolution, probably in the service provider. So there's an example given here where it says auth : resolved. So after the auth has been resolved, it basically changes a couple options. So auth extend passport, et cetera, blah, 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 whatever, right? So if there's ever a case where you need to basically do some little pieces of logic after a facade is resolved, you now have the ability to do that. In addition, there is a env variable now called app config cache to control the cache config path. There's a couple other changes and fixes. Nothing that I'm going to take the time to talk about here, though. So if you want to see the changelog, go ahead and go check that out. That is 5.7.18. All right, we've also got 5.7.19 going on here with us. And so I'll just buzz through that real quick here. There's a new where between collection method. So I believe where between typically says, is it dates?
Yeah.
Let me see here. Is it usually dates, or is it could it be anything? It actually looks like it could be really anything.
Really, yeah.
Yeah, it could be any two numbers, right? Anything that you could do a comparison with a greater than or less than, or greater than or equal to or less than or equal to. So yeah, it looks pretty simple. New collection, when you do collection where between, you pass in the key that you're looking to do the comparisons for, and then you pass in an array with a lower bound and an upper bound, and that will give you all the values that fall between those two bounds. So that's pretty cool. That's probably the largest thing of note there. That's 5.7.19. Okay. We've got Laravel Cashier 9 released. Michael, maybe you take that one. Have you ever used Cashier before?
No. I've been tentatively looking at it because we're currently considering using Stripe.
Right. I was just
at
going to
work.
ask about that. Yeah.
Yeah, so the the least amount of work that I can do to get that implemented, the better. But it depends on how Cashier is going to implement some stuff that, and how our business operates in terms of subscriptions and once-off charges that we tend to combine onto a regular subscription invoice. So I look forward to it hopefully taking care of some of that stuff for me, but time will tell.
Yeah.
But
so
on
let's
that,
talk about real quickly. Can we talk about real quickly like what Cashier is? Or I mean, it kind of describes it here
yeah.
in the blog post there.
Yeah. So Cashier is a free open source package. It's a first party package from Laravel that provides a fluent interface for working with Stripe and Braintree subscriptions. It gives you an expressive and fluent interface, as we've come to expect with anything Laravel, for both Stripe and Braintree subscription billing services, and will handle almost all of the boilerplate subscription billing code that you don't want to write. In addition to basic subscription management, it also handles coupons, swapping subscriptions, quantities of subscriptions, cancellation grace periods. It'll generate invoices for you. It'll handle things like pro rata values and things like that. So be sure to check out the Cashier upgrade guide if you're upgrading from version 8 to version 9, and check the changes in version requirements. The main things in version 9, support for PHP 7 has been removed. The minimum version of Laravel required is version 5.7. And there's a few other bits and pieces that you should be aware of, which will be in the blog post we link up in the show notes.
Yeah, so I think the important note here, and you probably caught it, most of you people who are good listeners, but for me, when Laravel Cashier first came out, I was like, great, something to kind of just like build in Stripe, amazing, take payments. And it is sort of if what you're doing is subscriptions, right? So Stripe and Braintree both have the ability to add subscriptions where it kind of does recurring payments and those sorts of things, right? Everything that you can think of with subscriptions. Coupons, swapping subscriptions, quantities, cancellations, grace periods, etc. It handles subscriptions. So if you're just talking about doing one-off charges, it's probably not what you're looking for. This is looking to manage subscriptions for you. So that's an important note, and that is the end of that public service announcement.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we are on to kind of like what we would normally be on to. Michael, we've caught up to our little thing that Eric has put together for us, which what is his little thing that he built us this little custom dashboard that we use to kind of do all of our podcast stuff off of. I think it just rolls back for the previous 2 weeks or something.
Yeah,
like
the previous 2 weeks, which is typically more than enough for us. But when we take a month off of recording a podcast, we've got to go digging ourselves. So
yeah. So the first thing on that list is MyCLI. So MyCLI is it's a CLI tool with auto completion and syntax highlighting for MySQL, MariaDB, and Percona, which I've never heard of Percona. No, MySQL and MariaDB, I know those two. I've not heard of Percona. But it's a command line tool to be able to interface, write any queries that you would want from the command line. You can install it on the Mac with um, pip, right, which is the Python package tool, or you can install it with Brew, Homebrew on your Mac. So it looks pretty cool. Honestly, I don't write stuff often in the command line for MySQL. How
Mm.
about you?
I do, only because it's sometimes easier to just jump onto a server because we've got dedicated database servers. So sometimes it's easier to just jump onto that server and access MySQL locally. I know that SQL Pro, which I typically use, makes it really easy to connect to MySQL over an SSH tunnel, but sometimes I get a bit of lag across that connection depending on how busy the database is. So I want to get it as responsive as possible.
That makes sense.
I did actually install my CLI and had a bit of a play around with it. I I have just a personal vendetta against things that pop up while I'm typing, so I gave it a miss. The syntax highlighting is handy if and I didn't really look too much into it. It'd be nice if I could have the syntax highlighting without the auto completion stuff. That would be
Okay.
my ideal
You
scenario.
don't like the auto completion stuff?
I don't know because it's not quite as quick as I want it to be sometimes, and with the syntax highlighting, I can see if I've made a typo with like a keyword or
Sure.
if I'm quoting something, it makes it obvious that I've missed a quote or something like that. But yeah, I don't typically enjoy autocomplete. Tab
Okay.
completion, yes. Autocomplete, like drop
Oh,
down
gotcha.
things, not so much. Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. All right, that's the distinction I was looking for. I was like, really? You like that? Okay. Tab completion, yes. Okay, that makes sense. Cool. All right, so that's our first little thing here, and just so that you know what it is, if you want to do it, it's just brew install my CLI is all it is. MyCLI or pip install my CLI, same thing. So if you want to try that out, give it a spin. Go ahead and check that out, or check out the blog post that Mr. I'm guessing it's Paul Redmond. It
Yep.
is. What do you know? Everybody's favorite human. Thank you, Paul. Okay, this account and Laravel package. I want to talk about this real quick. So this account Laravel package is essentially a way for you to be able to track changes on your Eloquent models. So the kind of the why for why you would use this, right? It says data discrepancies that may indicate business concerns, suspect activities, and other actions that would otherwise pass unnoticed can now be easily spotted. So it keeps track of all Eloquent model changes, and it goes through the listing of all the different features, all the different types, right? Many to manys. It keeps complete snapshots of recordable models when created, modified, or retrieved. You can do data integrity checks really easily. It's got a lot of customization. It supports all the way from Laravel 5.2 and up. It's got a lot of really good documentation and very easy to implement. So this sounds like something like, it's named accountant Laravel package, right? So it's basically, if you need something that's going to keep really stringent records on everything that's being changed in your application, then this would be a good app for you to take a look at. It's sort of they compare it in the post here to Laravel Event Projector, which is Spassy's sort of deal.
Mhm.
I think Laravel Event Projector, you sort of would have to start out knowing that's the way you wanted to design it, right? Because it uses event sourcing.
Yeah.
This seems like a really like a drop-in solution, right? You kind of use a trait on any Eloquent model that you want to keep track of all the records for, and it just starts recording things.
Yeah, it
Um,
certainly seems like a drop in, as you say, and it's very focused on this very specific thing in terms of like keeping an eye on records, and it'll be good for identifying what has changed outside of your application. Like if someone's gone into the database and changed something and they didn't leave the record there. So this strikes me as the kind of thing that would be useful in your day job because I assume you'd want to be keeping fairly tight tabs on things that are changing and so on and so forth.
yeah, and yeah, there are some things that we do have. The Spassy actually has another package. I can't remember what it's called. I think it's called like
Like
Activity
activity
Log.
log, yeah.
Activity Log, yeah. And we use that in a couple different places, and it works
Right.
pretty well.
Yeah.
It does a lot of, it's essentially this. This seems like Activity Log on steroids, right? Activity Log is pretty much just a very simple
Mm,
implementation of this, but this seems like it's maybe got some more features, which is pretty
yeah.
pretty cool.
Well,
Um,
having the signed ledger records for data integrity is handy because it means that you'd even be able to determine if someone did something in the UI and then went and changed a record later in the database. You'd be able to, or they tampered with that ledger record. You'd be able to determine that, well, someone's messed with that because they may not have
Interesting.
signed it correctly as well. So gives you that
Interesting. Yeah,
extra
it's got
level.
signed record. Yeah, signed ledger records. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's pretty cool. Yeah, so it looks like they've done a lot of work on this.
Mm.
So again, if you're looking to make sure that the data is all, um, thumbs up, all good to go, this would be a good thing for you to check out. The other one I was going to say that, which is really interesting, is Nova doesn't do this to this extent, right? But there is there is just a trait that you can put on any of your models when you're using Nova, and anything that gets changed through the Nova interface, it will kind of keep a record of who changed it and what it was and all of that. Do you remember
Huh.
seeing that at Laracon? It's pretty cool. It's really simple to implement. You literally just put a trait on the model, and then it keeps track of all the changes that
Nice.
happened in Nova. So it's pretty cool. Yeah. The more you know.
There you go.
Okay. There we go. There's the accountant package. So then, have you been following any of XG through the development iPad?
But yeah, it's been interesting, and it's prompted me to want to start using Vim full time again, just so that because with Vim I've got my editor, and then I'm in the terminal, so I've got MySQL, I've got Git handy, I'm looking at my test running, I'm looking at um npm. I can always have my mix watcher running and things like that. So I haven't fully committed to it, but I have been using the terminal more solidly in the last couple of weeks. Being able to use the iPad though, especially because poor Eric broke his hand riding his bike, or not riding
Big
his
time.
bike as it were. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he really broke his hand, right? It was
He
pretty bad. He sent
made a
us,
big
I
mess
think
of it.
yeah, I don't know if he put I don't know if he sent a picture to us or if he just put it on Twitter. I think he probably did both, but
Yeah.
he like impacted the one hand so that the finger like telescoped into itself.
Mm.
Like it broke and impacted into itself. It was pretty disgusting.
It was a pretty
Ugh.
full on injury. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So they had to like
So
wire all his fingers together to heal up.
yeah.
Poor guy.
So as a result, he went on a method. He went looking for a way where he could obviously keep working with this injury, but making I don't know if you've ever sprained a finger, but that makes it hard enough to type on a regular keyboard or a dislocated and thing like that. When you're talking like a broken hand and it's in a cast and you literally cannot use it, finding something and an approach to develop and still be able to type in that situation was interesting to follow along. And Eric went into detail about this little Bluetooth keyboard that he bought, and some of the limitations that he had in terms of any front end work that he needed to do. There's obviously no real good database tools on the iPad and things like that. So he spent, obviously not by choice, but quite a bit of time using an iPad for development, and he seems to have made it work pretty well from all accounts. So
It was pretty interesting. His initial kind of reasoning, he said that he could work on the iPad a lot easier because of the autocomplete and autocorrect.
mm,
So he said it was faster than the MacBook. So that's kind of what pushed him to want to use it, which I
yeah,
thought was pretty interesting. And kind of a side note, you had said, it's hard enough to type with, no injuries, much less having to try and type with a cast or whatever. I remember I broke my finger in soccer practice in
ugh.
like, I don't remember if it was the ninth grade or something, when I was in my first typing class. Like, I didn't do too great in that class. I
No,
feel
I
like
imagine not.
it's like my ring finger in my left hand.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway.
You'd be surprised. Like I've jarred fingers in that playing basketball in the past, and it's
Oh
just
yeah.
like it's such a horrible. It's such a small thing, and it doesn't hurt. But when you like need to move your finger in a way that you would contort your fingers to type on a keyboard, it's not pleasant.
Dude, I've recently, and this is so rabbit trail, but I've so thought many times thought recently of like when I'm about to do something. So we were roller skating the other day. Our kids had like a roller skating event for school, and it was super fun. And I was like, oh man, I remember doing this when I was a kid and being like crazy, whatever. And I'm like, dude, if I fell and broke my arm right now, this would be a bad situation. Like how
Yeah,
how
yeah,
dependent our jobs are on literally our hands and our
yeah.
arms being,
I
being
wouldn't even let
intact.
yeah, I wouldn't even let Rhea hold my hand when she was delivering Eli. I said, I have to go back to work. I can't have a broken hand. I've heard stories about like the unfathomable strength that women discover when they're giving birth. And I said, no, don't touch me.
Oh my gosh, you are a heartless
I
partner.
was I was too
How
busy
dare you?
looking inside, like over the curtain, while they were like carving her open and pulling Eli out. So
Oh gosh, dude. Don't even. Ugh. You can't talk about it that way. You can't say carving her open. That
they were
sounds.
carving.
Oh my word. Okay. Anyway,
Moving right along.
moving right along. So anyway, Eric has a lot of cool tips in here for how you can use that and use your iPad for development. So thanks, Eric. Sorry about the situation, but glad you were able to
Yeah,
make lemonade out of lemons.
that's right. Hey, March 6th, 2019. What's happening, Jake?
March 2019. Oh, well, yeah. Luricon Online. Took me a minute. I was like, wait a second, what is it? Yes, Luricon Online, which we are having a viewing party. Anybody who's listening to this, if you live within 8 hours of Bloomington, Illinois, Central Illinois, you are officially invited to come to our party. We have enough room for 50 people. We will provide breakfast, we will provide lunch, and we will have in a nice brand new conference room that we just put together with massive screens and nice speakers, and it's going to be fun.
Nice. Nice.
Yeah. So I'm really stoked about it. It's on the website for Laracon Online, which I think is laracon.net.
Yep.
But yeah, it's going to be pretty awesome. So they've got Taylor Otwell, they've got Matt Stauffer, they've got Adam Wathen and Steve Shoger, who are going to tag team something, I believe. Maybe hold on, or maybe I read it wrong. It says refactoring UI tag team. Yeah, so like they tag team to refactoring UI. It would be cool to see them just tag team and talk. That'd be pretty cool. Frederik van der Herten, Samantha Geitz, Marcel Posiat, all those guys, and it's $12, $12 for an early bird ticket. And you don't have to be in the US to view it. You don't have to have flights anywhere, right? It's available to everybody around the globe. In addition, Laracon Online this year is giving away 355 tickets for free in an effort to reach an even wider Laravel community. So if you don't have $12, that's totally fine. You can sign up for the giveaway, and we can thank their generous sponsors for that. If you don't get to sign up in the early bird period, it's $25 after the early bird ends. In addition, I'll say that every year they have digital swag that they provide, which makes up for the cost of the ticket. You literally get more in digital swag than the ticket costs.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so they always do a great job. It's always really fun. It's kind of like a nice recharge in between Laracons, see everyone and get to mingle in the last year. What was it? They had a message board.
They had Discourse,
right?
yeah.
Discourse, yeah. So that was pretty awesome. So go buy your tickets, laracon.net, $12. And if you can't afford it, sign up for the giveaway and see if you can make that happen.
Yeah.
Okay, what else we got here? We got php.env 3.0 released. Okay, so I don't know if people realize this. I'm sure they probably do. Do you ever remember having to try and figure out environment variables before this package? I'm trying to manage those across servers. It was a nightmare.
Yeah, it was interesting. It was
Yeah,
interesting.
it wasn't great. It wasn't great fun. All right, so now you can commit. Well, you probably don't commit these to source code, obviously, because you wouldn't want to do that. But you can submit your example, which is pretty close.
Yeah, the names.
Yeah. So it's pretty nice. So anyway, php.env released version 3 with some important improvements made to the library. Michael, have you taken a look at these ones? You want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. So, I mean, what we've got is some more flexibility in terms of which parts of the environment that the package will try to read and modify. There's first class support for multi-line variables now as well. No more trimming values, so you get them exactly as you type. Something to be aware of with that. If you have a password, for example, or a username in your env file that has like a trailing space, currently what php.env will do is it'll trim that string so you only get the string value.
Oh, interesting.
With version 3, if you've accidentally left a space there, that space will then be part of that environment variable moving forward. So you may run into issues there. So make sure before you upgrade your version of php.env that you check these things to make sure that you've got exactly the correct parameters in there. But we can also now accept a list of paths to try in order to look for the .env file, which probably doesn't matter too much for us in Laravel, that's all handled kind of at the bootstrap level, but you could put in multiple paths to look for the environment file, for example, or you could say that it's in a different directory if you're using the .env package in your own applications. And then we've also got stronger validation of variable names to avoid silent failures or obscure errors. There is some more detail going in. If you want to use multi-line,
Which that's sort of interesting, right? These multi-line
multi-line,
variables. Yeah.
yeah, I don't know necessarily when you might use that.
It says
Um,
certificates SSH keys, right?
okay,
So those
yeah,
sorts of, yeah,
okay, that makes
right.
sense.
Yep. Without the need for pseudo new line characters, you can just paste it in and it'll pick it all
That's
up.
cool.
Yeah.
If you're doing that, you obviously need to quote the entire string.
Right.
So,
Right.
but that is helpful. So, yeah, definitely
Yep.
check that out. The information will be in the show notes.
Yep. Pretty cool. Thank you. All right. Let's see. What else do we have? Tips for your P unit tests. This was interesting. I think Caleb Porzio put a test out or put a screenshot out there on Twitter the other day and said this really does make a massive difference. So Tim McDonald wrote this article, and he kind of goes through and gives a bunch of different tips that you can use to speed up your PHP unit test suite. So you can actually utilize this. So he has a package in here called Paratest, which is pretty cool, which basically runs your tests in parallel, right?
Mm.
So it means it basically has multiple processes running at the same time. So you just call
Completely broke my test suite.
Did it seriously?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. You have to, because it's running your tests in parallel, if you're hitting the database
ooh,
and it's like migrating your database at different times,
ooh,
then you're going to
yeah,
run into issues, which is, I think, it's the only reason this package broke my tests. So, but yeah,
yeah.
it
That, I
certainly
mean,
does help to speed things up, though.
yeah. I mean, a lot of my tests hit the database. You shouldn't do that. You shouldn't be hitting your database.
Oh, well.
We all do it, and we do it in SQLite.
Yeah.
I don't know, but it's still even at that, like it doesn't matter if you're running them in
Yeah.
parallel. That would break it. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. I think it
but
was
I mean,
just an issue with the refresh database trait. Um, just because you've got the application making transactions and locking things at different times and whatever
yeah,
else. So yeah, it depends on how your tests are written as to whether or not Paratest will actually assist you.
yeah. But obviously, you can tell it would take much less time to run your tests if you were able to use Paratest, right? So
Yeah.
uh, the single screenshot he has here says 1.49 seconds versus 6.15 seconds, which is a pretty awesome improvement,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
They have some stuff about rerunning failed tests. So PHP Unit has a handy feature that allows you to rerun only the test that failed in the previous run, which is pretty nice if you're doing like a TDD style development, right? So it fails, then you change it, and then it only runs the tests that failed in the previous one. Um, let's see what else they have. Group slow tests all together so that you can group them and then run only those slow ones when you're needing to kind of hit the whole thing.
Yeah.
So anyway, there's a number of different ones. I'm not going to read through all of them, but disabling Xdebug is a good one too. If you're not doing that, disabling Xdebug will make a large difference in the amount of time it takes to run your tests. So in one example he has here, it takes 2.35 seconds to run 10 tests, and then he disables Xdebug and it takes 391 milliseconds.
Yeah.
So pretty massive improvement there, right? So if you're not disabling Xdebug, might be something you want to try, and it's really quick and easy to do so. So good article. Thanks, Tim McDonald. Really, really appreciate that. That is excellent. All right, what else we got, my man?
We had
5720.
yeah, we've got another two Laravel releases, 5.7.20 and 21.
Why don't you hit both
Laravel,
those?
yeah, 20 is a big meaty release by the looks of things. It's maybe not too bad. Anyway, 5720 added a chunk by ID support on model relations, a new collection method, and some new file system adapter assertion methods. Okay. You can now call chunk by ID on related models in belongs to many and has many through relations. So I guess that would chunk by ID 1. I don't know when you use that. Please share us your examples. Hang on, let's have a look. Yeah, chunk by ID. Is there an example?
Models.
Closes this related to Laravel Nova. That pivot data doesn't attach to model if you use chunk by ID. Doesn't fetch pivot data. That's an issue. That 404s. That was changed. Those of you watching live see what one of these recordings are actually like.
Yep, all one of you.
Are we the other two?
I don't know, maybe. I'm not sure if it I'm not sure if it like keeps, us as the I don't know if it tracks us. I'm not sure. But in any case, it's either 3 people watching or 2 of us and one other person.
All right, I'll just cut all of this out because
No worries.
yeah, if you
Yep.
need that, you use it, and if you don't, you don't.
Great.
Next, a where not between collection method is useful to filter collection items not between a given range. So I suppose this is the inverse method to
Right.
the collection where between that was added in a previous release.
Somebody saw where between come in and they're like, ooh, 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 ooh. I can PR where not between. I can do
That's
that.
right. Yeah, that's exactly right. It's a good one to swoop in on and get yourself into the framework. Next, you can allow predefined log channels to change the format of via configuration. And that's obviously a fairly code heavy one. So check out the PR that we'll link up in the show notes if you want more information. And the file system adapter storage assertions are now chainable, and you can handle multiple files at once. So
That's
your
nice.
assert exists, assert missing. You can pass an array of
That's really
paths
nice,
into
actually.
each, and then check all of those things at once. So it'll do a Boolean and that all of those paths need to exist, or all of those paths need to be missing, for example. And you can now access the current route's original bound parameters. So if you
That's
want
handy.
to get, say, for example, you pass a name and the name is used as part of a route model binding on the route, the route facade or the route object, you can call original parameter and either pass a name to get the specific parameter and get the original value, or you can call original parameters and get all of them back. So
that's really nice, actually.
that's kind of handy
Yeah.
if you want to, if you want to get the original integer value, or if you're finding that your bindings are not working for whatever reason, and you want to make sure that the parameter is actually getting through the URL to your controller methods, then that's kind of handy as well. And the last new feature in 5720 is the push jobs method on the queue fake allows you to retrieve all the jobs pushed to the queue during a test. So
Ooh, nice.
which is handy if you want to inspect each of the methods or each of the jobs that were pushed, as opposed to just saying that the job was pushed. So that's handy if you wanted to do further inspection on things that were popped on the queue. And
Very good.
the next and last release for this episode is 5721, which contained a bunch of miscellaneous fixes and changes. First of all, the pending command class from the foundation testing framework will now rethrow a no matching expectation exception to avoid undefined variable errors being thrown in your tests. So when you're using the ask question helper, for example, it would return an undefined variable exit code. So there's a fix in there for that. A few instances of get called class function were replaced with static : class, as the get called class function is potentially going to be deprecated in PHP 7.4. So just getting ourselves prepared for that eventuality. The blueprint remove column had a bug fix applied, which made it impossible to delete a column from a blueprint instance previously. And you can now set broadcast driver equals null as outlined in the broadcasting documentation. Previously, using null as the driver would cause an invalid argument exception. There's a fix for the assert session doesn't have errors method in your test, which was added for test failing when the test response doesn't have any errors. Previously, this assertion would fail with no errors were present at all, causing a call to undefined function getBag on null. And lastly, a revert was made to reverse a double localized strings in 403 blade file. You should obviously upgrade Laravel if you're on 5.7 to get the latest changes and fixes.
Nicely done. Thank you, Michael. Thanks for taking that one on, dude. That was a lot of stuff to cover there. 5.5719, 5720.
I
Yeah.
always find that going through the releases is a painful thing because you find yourself just like reciting, and then this changed, and then this function was added, and then this other thing was. It's not always the most interesting of news updates.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for taking that one on, dude. I appreciate it. So we've got an article by Joe Dixon here called "Building a Tool for Laravel Nova." So Joe took advantage of the Black Friday sale, bought a license for Laravel Nova, and in this blog post, he goes through what he discovered when building a tool for Laravel. So he talks about the scaffolding that's given to you when you go to build a tool out in Nova. I have to say, building a tool, building a filter, building an action, building a resource, building any of these things, it is so smooth. Like they made it so nice. So when you say PHP Artisan Nova tool, name the tool, it goes through and says, hey, do you want to go ahead and add this to your composer.json? Yes. Great. Do you want to update your composer dependencies right now? Yes. Do you want to install all your NPM dependencies right now? Yes. Do you want to compile all the assets? Yes. What I mean, it just literally does everything
Yeah,
for you.
steps
And
through.
by the time you're done saying yes to everything, it's got everything installed, ready to go. You CD into Nova components / whatever the name of your new component is, and you run npm run watch, and it just works. It's amazing, and it's incredible. So it's a great developer experience. I love it. I've created a couple of these tools. I will say out there as well, there is a post on Titan's blog, and their post is more focused around pushing your new custom tool up to Nova. Was it Nova packages or Nova?
Yeah.
What is it? Nova.
Yep.
Is it novapackages.com?
Yeah.
Yeah. So they basically tell you, hey, here's how you can create your tool, and then here's how you can share it on Nova packages, which is great. It's really helpful to be able to have that kind of part of it covered. But they're a little bit lighter on the actual development of a tool, right? They tell you about developing a tool, but it's not as in depth as this one is. So this one goes through talking through how you do the service provider, talks about the tool class itself, how you can customize the navigation icon and what it looks like on the side. Talks about the front end and what different pieces you can include and how you can hook into Vue. Talks about registering a tool, and also talks about how responsive Mr. David Hemphill is to any sort of questions he has on Twitter or on the Discord channel or on Telegram or any of those things. And I've had the same experience. David's really been on top of this stuff. So big props to David for staying on top of that and really trying to be attentive to the community and their needs. So that's pretty cool. But if you have any need to build a tool in Nova, this is a really great place to start. Of course, the documentation on Nova is really good as well. But of course, as with anything, like sometimes just hearing it from another perspective, from another person, will give a little bit of a different spin on it and fill in some blanks for you. And I read this after creating a tool, and I recognized some things. I was like, oh, I didn't realize that. So great article. Definitely go check it out. And again, massive props to the Nova team. I can't even tell you. I've been using Nova quite a bit recently, and it's just I created a Telegram channel with just Taylor and David, and every time I find something amazing, I just say Nova actions are amazing, or Nova tool. Like I literally, that's all I have to say in all caps. It's magic, and it is just incredible. It's such an awesome tool. So support those guys and go buy a license. If you haven't, you certainly will not be sad that you did. And you said, Michael, you're like, I'm going to start building this into the cost of every single side project I do, and it's totally
Yeah.
worth it, even if it's only for yourself.
Yeah. And there's a project that I'm about to start now where I'm just going to throw it into the cost, and I'm not even going to give it to the client.
And that's the thing. You don't have to. It's $200.
Yeah.
Nothing. I mean, it's,
yeah.
For the time it's going to save you.
Yeah.
I mean,
for administration, just for the bits and pieces, just because it ties everything together. Like, yes, I can open up SQL Pro and I can go in there and add things. But when you start having to add things in multiple tables and you need to start doing the relations, it's much easier just to like throw it into a Nova, set up the Nova models and resources and things like that, and just do it in a nice UI that handles all of that stuff for you and it validates it and makes sure that you've done it properly. It's much easier from an administration perspective than trying to do that stuff in MySQL directly.
It's funny because originally I would have thought like, oh yeah, SQL Pro tools or whatever is going to be everything I need. This is just for kind of the admins of the application, you know, like the kind of the
Mhm.
other people who are not technically savvy. And I had that same experience this morning. This morning I recognized that I had a bug in the system that was causing all the payments to be attributed to user number one, which was bad. But
Yeah.
it's a relatively new app, so there's only like 15 payments in there. So I was like, I'm gonna have to go look these up. And I was like, wait a second. Went into Nova. I was like, there it is. I know who made this payment. Edit, update the record, and it took me all of a minute and a half to get all of them updated. And I was like, dang, I would have had to do that in SQL Pro before, and I just did it
Yeah.
right in Nova. Um, I guess the other thing is, I don't know, man. There's just so many things. There's so many things. I'm not gonna. This isn't a Nova advertisement, but it really is pretty amazing. So
And the thing
if
is, if you
you
bump on something, it's much easier to just build that extra functionality into the Nova dashboard so that when you have to do it again
yes,
and again and again and again, you can just go and do it in Nova. You only have to build it once, you push out the code change, it's there in Nova, and you can, the next time that client asks for something, you just, all right, go and do that.
and I
So,
think the thing that really makes it so nice is that a lot of the things that I pain myself over is the UI. Like I can write the code. The code to make the change is not difficult, right? It's always how do I display this to the user? How do I make it obvious to them that this is what they can do? And all of those problems are solved for you as soon as you start using Nova. So, for instance, hey, I have this lady who needs to log in and she's handling all the trip planning. So, she needs to be able to go in, see which people have requested to have their flights arranged by her. She needs to be able to put flight information in for them. She needs to be able to add a ledger entry that's going to, say it's an additional $350 and you're departing from O'Hare on this date at this time, right? And you think about like, oh gosh, that seems like a lot of work to do that. Like it would be, but I've had all of that done in like an hour and a half. Like you just create a new action, you say here's the application, and actions can have different inputs, so you can define here's the 4 inputs that I want her to have, and then in your action you get the answers to all of those inputs, and then you can do whatever you want with them. All
yeah.
the UI is built for you. It's magic. It is so amazing. It's so amazing. So oh yeah, and you can send an email out at the same time too. And if it's going to take a while, you can just queue the actions and it'll tell you what's going on with them. It's just, I'm telling you, dude, it's freaking unbelievable. Can't believe it's only 200 bucks. Seriously, it's worth 3
Yeah.
times as much. Anyway,
Yep,
all right,
yep, yep,
we're done.
yep.
We're done with Nova. Sorry, guys. Sorry,
Cool.
everybody who's listening, guys and girls, peoples.
I think the one last thing that we'll talk about is the five hidden features of the Laravel Excel package. Have you used this
I got
package
a kid
before?
up. I haven't.
Oh,
I'll be right back.
so I've been using the Laravel Excel package a little bit in my day job to handle importing some data. So we get these Excel spreadsheets which have got data in there. We've got to you know deal with it all. We've got to separate it out into customers and accounts and services and products and things like that. It's really easy to just create these importers that just consume the Excel spreadsheet and then goes straight into your database. So you have like a 2 model method, and it'll handle it. Like it'll take in each record in the spreadsheet, it'll transform it, and then it'll create new models for you. So this this um, this article on Laravel News from Povilas Kodop goes into 5 hidden features that you might not know about. I'll hit them at the high level, and you can look into the article if you want to know more. Number 1 is exporting from HTML directly, so you can create uh, a export class, and you just pass the view directly into it, and it'll handle automatically spitting that as Excel for you. You can export to PDF, HTML, and any other format that you can think of. You can format cells however you want in terms of like exporting to Excel spreadsheets. So you can make them bold, italic, color them, whatever. It's all handled for you. And there's also the ability to export formulas. So if you've got some data and you want
No
to
way. That's
create a
crazy.
formula, so you export the formula directly from your map method, and it'll handle doing all that for you. So we'll link it up in the show notes. Definitely check it out. And it's a really good package if you have to deal in any way with importing, exporting, managing Excel data in your Laravel applications.
Including Nova, because they have a Nova tool that allows you to select any items from an index resource. So you can say, like, hey, go to all my users, click, click, click these 3 users, and then you can say action export to Excel. And it will build the Excel spreadsheet. And you can either just say, basically, give me all the values that are listed in this table, or give me all values listed in the entire, like when I say table, I mean like the view that you have
The
in
view
Nova.
in Nova, yeah.
Or you can say, give me all the columns, or you can write a custom export. Or you can do it, you can chunk it. Like if it's going to have more than 20,000 records, you can say do it, chunk it, or queue it. So yeah, this tool is all over the place. And I love it. I'm using it right now. I just implemented it the other day.
If Taylor and David ever have problems selling Nova, they can just send you out as like a traveling Nova salesperson.
I mean, seriously, guys, if you're listening, you should be sponsoring this podcast right now. You're getting so much love. It's well worth it though. I've only licensed, and so many more coming soon though. Many more coming soon. So
awesome.
Yep.
All right. I think it's time to wrap this one up.
I think it is. Hey, everybody who's on the live. This is my 1.5-year-old. He's looking at the microphone. He's like, oh man, what is going on with this microphone? I tried to put an AirPod in his ear so he could hear you talking, Michael, but yeah, he's touching it now. He's like, oh no, what's that blue light?
He looks so much like your wife.
Yeah. Say hi. He's waving.
Hey.
Hey. There you go. Good job, buddy. He can't hear anything, but it's okay. Hey, everyone. Thanks so much for listening to episode 77 of the Laravel News Podcast. We enjoyed hanging out with you. If you liked this show, please feel free to rate it up 5 stars in your podcatcher of choice. Of course, you can find show notes for this episode at laravel-news.com/podcast/77. And if you have any questions, comments, or feedback, hit us up on Twitter at Jacob Bennett, at Michael Dorinda, or at Laravel News. All right, everyone. We will see you in 2 weeks.
See you.
Bye.